Captain Darius Frost leaned against the viewing port of the Earth Fleet vessel Resolute, his weathered face illuminated by the eerie purple glow of the Nebulan cluster. 20 years in deep space had hardened him, but nothing prepared him for what they found in the debris field of Proxima Centauri's abandoned mining colony. "Captain, you need to see this." Lieutenant Kira Voss's voice crackled through his comm unit. "Lower deck excavation site. We've found something alive." The excavation chamber was a chaos of hastily established research equipment and nervous personnel. At its center stood a crystalline pod, partially unearthed from the rubble. Inside, suspended in luminous azure fluid, floated a humanoid figure. "Life signs are stable but fading," reported Dr. Ezra Hammond, the ship's chief xenobiologist. "The preservation technology is unlike anything in our database. Based on the pod's location in these ruins, it predates the Coalition purge by centuries." Darius approached the pod cautiously. Through the translucent surface he could make out the figure's features. Iridescent violet skin that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. Delicate facial features framed by silver-white hair that drifted like silk underwater. "Can you open it?" Darius asked. "The interface appears to be responding to our attempts," Dr. Hammond replied, fingers flying across holographic controls. "But Captain, Coalition protocol explicitly forbids intervention with—" "The Coalition abandoned this sector," Darius cut in, "and they abandoned these people to die. We're not bound by their protocols anymore." A series of musical tones emanated from the pod as its crystal surface began to dissolve. The liquid within evaporated instantly, leaving the figure lying motionless on the pod's base. Everyone held their breath. Her eyes snapped open, startling luminous orbs of deep indigo with flecks of gold. She gasped, drawing her first breath in what might have been centuries, then recoiled in terror at the sight of the humans surrounding her. "We mean no harm," Darius said softly, raising empty palms. Dr. Hammond activated the universal translator. "Can you understand us?" The alien woman trembled, clutching at the shimmering white garment that clung to her form. Ceremonial in nature, adorned with symbols that matched the inscriptions on the pod. "Serafari," she finally whispered, touching her chest. "I am Naire, Royal Guardian of House Luminar." Her voice, even through the translator, carried a melodic quality that seemed to resonate in the air. "My people. Where are my people?" The silence that followed was unbearable. Dr. Hammond looked to Darius, whose expression had darkened. "Captain," Kira interrupted, checking her scanner. "Coalition patrol vessels just entered the system. Standard sweep pattern. They'll detect us in minutes." Naire's eyes widened at the mention of the Coalition. "The purifiers," she whispered, rising unsteadily to her feet. "They came with promises of alliance. Then they brought only death." Darius made his decision instantly. "Prepare for emergency departure, and get her to medical." As they rushed through the corridors, alarms blaring, Naire clung to Darius's arm. "Why would you risk yourselves for me?" she asked. Darius looked at her, at this last ember of an extinguished civilization. "Because some things are worth defying empires for." The Resolute broke orbit just as the Coalition vessels opened fire. Awakening among strangers, the Resolute hurtled through hyperspace, its engines straining as Darius pushed the ship beyond recommended speeds. In the medical bay, Naire sat wrapped in a thermal blanket, watching Dr. Hammond analyze her biological readings with fascination. "Extraordinary cellular regeneration," the doctor murmured. "Your DNA structure contains triple helixes, where ours has double." He looked up from his instruments. "You've been in suspended animation for over 300 years, yet your body shows minimal degradation." Naire's gaze drifted to the viewport where stars stretched into brilliant streaks of light. 300 years, she repeated hollowly. "Then it is as I feared. I am truly the last." Darius entered carrying a data tablet. "Coalition archives confirm it. The Serafari homeworld was cleansed after what they called the biological incompatibility crisis. Official records claim your people were carrying a pathogen dangerous to other species." "Lies," Naire said, her voice suddenly hard. Our empathic abilities frightened them. Sarafari cannot lie. We feel the emotions of others as our own. The coalition feared we would expose their diplomatic deceptions. She stood, her movements graceful despite her obvious grief. The medical bay's light seemed to respond to her emotions, dimming slightly as shadows played across her violet skin. My mother, Queen Alestra, foresaw the betrayal. She had me placed in the sacred preservation chamber with our genetic archives. Her fingers traced symbols on her garment. I was to sleep until the stars aligned for the rebirth of our kind. Lieutenant Voss appeared at the doorway. Captain, we've reached the outer boundary of Earth's defensive zone. Coalition vessels are demanding we surrender the contraband and prepare for boarding. Darius's jaw tightened. Tell them to go to hell. Sir, Kira hesitated. That's an act of war. They fired first, Darius replied. Alert Earth Command of our situation. Tell them we're bringing home a survivor of coalition genocide. As the ship changed course, heading deeper into Earth territory, Naire approached Darius. You risk much for one alien stranger. Humanity knows something about being underestimated, he said with a grim smile. For centuries, the coalition treated us as primitive newcomers, barely worth trading rights. They didn't expect us to advance so quickly. In the following days, as they evaded coalition patrols, Naire learned about Earth. She absorbed information voraciously, history, culture, science, often staying awake through ship nights while the crew slept. Her presence had a strange effect on the Resolute. Conflicts among crew members seemed to dissolve in her proximity, and even the ship's systems appeared to run more efficiently. Dr. Hammond developed a theory. Your species' empathic field appears to create a harmonic resonance that extends beyond biological entities. You're literally bringing our ship into balance. When not studying Earth's databases, Naire spent time with Darius. Despite their different origins, they discovered surprising commonalities. Both were survivors. Both understood duty and sacrifice. In my culture, she told him one night as they shared a meal in his quarters, we believe souls recognize each other across lifetimes. And what does your soul recognize in me? Darius asked, more affected by her presence than he cared to admit. Naire's luminous eyes held his. A kindred spirit, someone who understands what it means to be the last line of defense. The ship's alert system shattered the moment. Captain to the bridge. Kira's voice was tense. Coalition battlecruisers have formed a blockade around Earth. They're demanding we surrender Naire, or they'll consider it an act of war against all coalition worlds. The price of Sanctuary Earth's orbital defense platforms bristled with activity as the Resolute approached under escort from a squadron of Terran battlecruisers. The coalition blockade loomed in the distance, 17 warships arranged in attack formation, their weapon systems powered but not yet targeting. In the Resolute's conference room, Admiral Thaddeus Porter of Earth Defense Command regarded Naire with open curiosity. Behind him stood representatives from Earth's governing council, their expressions ranging from wonder to suspicion. The coalition is demanding your immediate surrender, Admiral Porter stated bluntly. They claim you're carrying extinct biological weapons in your genetic code. Naire stood tall, her ceremonial garment now complemented by a blue Earth uniform jacket. I carry only my people's history and their hope for rebirth. The archives in my preservation pod contain the genetic material of 10,000 Sarafari citizens. One of the counselors stepped forward. You're suggesting we help you resurrect an extinct species? I am asking for sanctuary, Naire replied. What you do with the knowledge I bring is your choice. Darius, standing at Naire's side, addressed the Admiral. Sir, the Coalition purged the Sarafari because they feared their abilities. A race of empaths who cannot deceive would have exposed centuries of Coalition manipulation. Admiral Porter's eyes narrowed. And you believe this justifies risking global war? I believe, Darius said carefully, that how we respond to genocide defines who we are as a species. The debate raged for hours. Earth had maintained an uneasy peace with the Coalition for decades, a peace built on careful diplomacy, and the rapid advancement of human technology that made conquest too costly for the Coalition to attempt. Meanwhile, in Earth orbit, tensions escalated. The Coalition commander, High Marshal Dravik, issued ultimatums with increasing frequency. Your protection of this abomination violates 17 Coalition security protocols. His message boomed across communication channels. Surrender the E1ID Serafari or face the consequences. In a private moment during a recess, Nire found Darius on an observation deck overlooking Earth's blue sphere. I cannot ask your people to die for me, she said softly. Perhaps I should surrender. Darius turned to her, his expression fierce. That's exactly what they want. To erase the evidence of what they did. If we hand you over, we're complicit in their crime. But war was coming anyway, he finished. The Coalition has been looking for an excuse to put humans back in our place. If not you, they would have found another reason. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. In the short time they'd known each other, a connection had formed that defied rational explanation, as though two fragments of the same star had recognized each other across the void. The ship's communication system interrupted. Captain Frost, Admiral Porter requests your immediate return. The Coalition has issued their final warning. Back in the conference room, the atmosphere had changed. Admiral Porter stood with his hands clasped behind his back, facing the assembled officers and officials. 10 minutes ago, Coalition forces fired upon and destroyed one of our long-range sensor platforms, he announced grimly. They claim it was preparing to target their vessels. This was a civilian research station with minimal defensive capabilities. A cold silence fell over the room. 42 civilian researchers, Porter continued, killed to send us a message. He turned to Nire. It seems your value to them extends beyond mere protocol violations. Nire closed her eyes, grief washing over her features. The genetic archives, she whispered. They contain more than just Serafari DNA. They hold records of all biological weapons the Coalition has developed and deployed against resistant worlds. My mother ensured this evidence survived. Understanding dawned on Porter's face. They're not afraid of you reproducing your species. They're afraid of what you know. The Admiral straightened his uniform and addressed the council members. I believe we have our answer. Earth will not bow to terrorists or genocidal regimes. He turned to Darius. Captain Frost, ready your ship. You'll be escorting our guest to Luna Base Alpha. The rest of the fleet will prepare to engage the Coalition forces. As they departed, Nire caught Darius's arm. Your people are willing to fight for me, a stranger, when the entire Galactic Coalition abandoned mine. Why? Darius's expression softened momentarily. Because some principles transcend species, Nire. And because in you, we see reflections of our own struggle against those who would deem us expendable. Hearts across the star's Luna base. Alpha hummed with activity as Earth prepared for the possibility of full-scale war. Within its reinforced walls, scientists worked frantically to understand the Serafari genetic archives, while military strategists calculated odds and outcomes in adjacent chambers. Nire stood in the central laboratory, her hands hovering above, a holographic representation of her DNA. Dr. Hammond and a team of Earth's foremost geneticists watched in fascination as she manipulated the display, explaining aspects of Serafari biology that defied conventional understanding. The empathic field is generated here, she indicated a cluster of structures where her triple helix formed unusual patterns. It allowed us to form connections not just with other sentient beings, but with the fabric of our surroundings. Dr. Eliza Winterborn, Earth's leading xenobiologist, shook her head in wonder. Your people could literally communicate with planetary ecosystems. No wonder the Coalition feared you. Away from the scientists, in a quiet observation dome overlooking the lunar surface, Darius reviewed tactical reports. Coalition forces had increased to 23 warships, and diplomatic channels had gone silent. Earth's allies in the Outer Rim were sending support, but they would arrive too late if the Coalition decided to attack. Neri found him there, her approach silent but her presence immediately felt, a warmth in the atmosphere, a subtle shift in the room's energy. "The scientists believe they can begin restoration of my people within months," she said, taking a seat beside him. "A new generation of Sarafari could be born on Earth." Darius set aside his reports. "That's good news." "Is it?" Her luminous eyes searched his. "I will bring war to your doorstep before bringing life to mine." "The war was inevitable," Darius replied. "The Coalition has always seen Earth as a threat to be controlled or eliminated. You've just accelerated the timeline." Silence fell between them, comfortable despite the circumstances. Through the dome's transparent ceiling, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the black velvet of space, Coalition ships visible as distant glints of light in orbit around it. "In the ancient texts of my people," Neri said softly, "there is a story of stars that fall in love across the void, separated by vast distances, yet connected by forces stronger than gravity." Darius smiled. "We have similar stories on Earth." "Perhaps," she ventured, "the universe speaks the same language of connection regardless of the world." Their hands found each other in the space between them, 5 violet fingers intertwining with 5 tan ones. The contact sent a subtle current through them both, as though completing a circuit that had been waiting to be closed. "I never expected," Darius began. "Nor I," she whispered. The moment was interrupted by alarms blaring throughout the base. Darius's communication device lit up with emergency signals. "Coalition forces have launched their first wave," announced Admiral Porter's voice. "All personnel to battle stations. Captain Frost, report to command immediately." As they rushed through corridors filled with personnel preparing for conflict, Neri suddenly doubled over, clutching her chest. "What's wrong?" Darius supported her, concern etching his features. "So much fear," she gasped. "So much hatred flowing from those ships. The Coalition commander, his emotions are like poison." She straightened with effort. "But there is something else. Confusion among some of their fleet. Not all believe in this war." In the command center, tactical displays showed Coalition vessels deploying fighter squadrons, while Earth's defense platforms activated countermeasures. The first exchanges of weapons fire illuminated Earth's orbit like premature stars. Admiral Porter turned as they entered. "Captain, we need you on the Resolute. You'll be leading the secondary defense squadron." Darius nodded, then hesitated, looking at Neri. "I must go with him," she said to the Admiral. "I can sense the emotional state of the Coalition forces. I may be able to identify weaknesses, commanders who might be reasoned with." Porter considered briefly, then nodded. "Very well, but stay off communications. The Coalition doesn't need to know exactly where you are." As they prepared to depart for the waiting shuttle, Darius pulled Neri into a private alcove. "This isn't your fight," he said softly. "You could stay here, protected." Neri placed her hand against his cheek. "It became my fight when they destroyed my world, and it became our fight when you chose to protect me." She leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his, a Sarafari gesture of deep connection. "Whatever happens, Darius Frost, know that you awakened something in me beyond mere survival. You gave me a reason to live, not just exist." Their lips met briefly, human and alien, yet in that moment, simply 2 souls recognizing each other across the cosmos. The battle for Earth had begun. Fury of the stars, the Resolute shuddered under sustained weapons fire as it maneuvered through the chaos of battle. On the bridge, Darius barked commands while Neri stood beside him, her eyes closed in deep concentration, sensing the emotional currents flowing from the Coalition fleet. "The 3rd battlecruiser," she said suddenly. "Its commander hesitates. There is conflict within him about this war." Darius nodded to Communications Officer Wei. "Open a direct channel to that vessel." On screen appeared the stern face of a Coalition commander, reptilian features set in a mask of military discipline. "Commander Thaxil," Darius addressed him. "You know this conflict is based on lies. The Seraphari were no threat to the coalition. Thaxel's expression remained impassive. Human vessels, surrender the biological contaminant and withdraw. Neri stepped forward. Commander Thaxel of House Sovan, seventh son of the desert plains, she said, using knowledge that could only come from her empathic abilities. Your ancestor once visited my world as a scholar. He wrote of our healing temples with reverence. Shock registered on the commander's face. How could you possibly know? Because we remember, she replied simply. And somewhere within you, there remains doubt about the righteousness of erasing an entire civilization. A tense silence followed, broken by alarms as another wave of coalition fighters strafed the Resolute's shields. Captain, Lieutenant Voss called out. Multiple hyperspace, signatures detected. Reinforcements arriving. But it wasn't coalition reinforcements that emerged from hyperspace. Dozens of vessels of various designs appeared. Merchant ships, colony transports, mining vessels, all bearing the markings of independent worlds from across the galaxy. This is Captain Riza Kor of the Free Worlds Alliance, announced a new voice over the communications channel. We stand with Earth against coalition tyranny. For too long we have watched them erase those who challenge their narrative. More ships appeared, hundreds now forming a protective ring around Earth. Many were civilian vessels, barely armed, but their message was clear. The galaxy was watching, and humanity was not alone in its defiance. On the coalition command ship, High Marshal Dravik faced a decision. His forces could still overwhelm Earth's defenses, but the cost had just increased exponentially, and witnesses from across the galaxy now surrounded the battlefield. Neri sensed the shift. He fears exposure more than he desires victory, she told Darius. The coalition has hidden many atrocities. This would reveal them all. Darius opened a channel to all vessels. This ends now, Marshal Dravik. The Seraphari archives contain evidence of every biological weapon the coalition has deployed against resistant worlds. Surrender your forces, or that information goes to every system in the galaxy. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then, one by one, coalition vessels began powering down weapon systems. Commander Thaxel's ship was the first to break formation, pulling back from Earth's orbit in a clear gesture of withdrawal. High Marshal Dravik's face appeared on screen, contorted with rage. This isn't over, humans. The coalition does not forget betrayal. Neither do we, Darius replied, and neither will the restored Seraphari civilization that will rise under Earth's protection. The transmission cut off, and the coalition fleet began a tactical retreat. On the bridge of the Resolute, cheers erupted as tension gave way to disbelieving relief. In the aftermath, as damage reports filtered in and medical teams treated the wounded, Darius found Neri in the ship's arboretum, a small garden designed to provide fresh oxygen and psychological comfort during long space journeys. She stood among Earth plants, her violet skin luminous under the artificial sunlight, tears streaming down her face. For 300 years I slept while my people remained unavenged, she said as he approached. And in mere days, strangers from another world risked everything to give them justice. Darius took her hands in his. Not strangers. Not anymore. On the observation deck of Luna Base Alpha 1 month later, Neri stood before representatives from Earth and 24 independent worlds. Behind her, in a specially constructed chamber, the first Seraphari embryo developed in an artificial womb, the beginning of her species' rebirth. My mother believed that one day we would find allies who valued truth above power, she addressed the assembly. She could not have imagined that our salvation would come from a world so distant from our own, or that I would find not just sanctuary, but belonging. Her gaze found Darius in the crowd, now wearing the insignia of an admiral, a promotion earned in the battle that history would remember as humanity's definitive emergence as a galactic power. The coalition believed that differences between species made coexistence impossible, she continued. But they were wrong. Our differences are our strength. Your empathy, demonstrated not through biological ability but through choice, proves that connection transcends biology. As the ceremony concluded and the Alliance representatives dispersed to continue diplomatic discussions, Darius approached Naire. "The coalition is already fragmenting," he told her. "3 systems have declared independence since the battle. Your people will have justice." "Our people," she corrected, taking his hand. Her ceremonial garments now incorporated elements of Earth design, symbolic of the bridge she had become between 2 civilizations. Above them, through the transparent dome, Earth and stars shared the same view, no longer distant and separate, but part of the same cosmic community. The fury that had driven humanity to stand against an empire had transformed into something more enduring, a commitment to protect, to nurture, and to love across the boundaries of worlds. "What happens now?" Darius asked, his fingers intertwining with hers. Naire smiled, her luminous eyes reflecting starlight. "Now we prove what the coalition feared most, that different worlds can not only coexist but create something greater, together than they ever could apart." In the artificial womb behind them, the future of an ancient race grew alongside the promise of a new understanding between stars. And in the space between 2 souls, one born of Earth, one of distant Seraphar, a connection burned brighter than any sun, defying distance, difference, and even death itself.